Hey guys, welcome back to the second video of chapter 1 of NAIL IB's Economics SL and HL. Alright, in this video we'll be talking about the concepts of scarcity and the three basic economic questions. These are fundamental concepts which are required for a greater understanding of economics, what exactly is the basic economic theory, and is very important to comprehend before we move on to more complex topics. All right, without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, what is scarcity? Scarcity arises because there are not enough resources to satisfy everyone's needs and wants. Okay, scarcity exists because there aren't enough resources in the world to satisfy everyone's needs and wants. As I've said before in the previous video, you can maybe get something, all right? You can have your needs and wants satisfied, but another person can't. Why? It's because there aren't enough resources for the creation of the goods and services that everyone wants. You can get yours, but another person can't get his or hers. That's essentially the basic premise of scarcity, okay? And on that note, scarcity is very intricately related to Pareto optimality. Pareto optimality means that if someone is to be made better off in terms of resources, in terms of things that he has, okay, another person needs to be made worse off. For example, and if person A gets a house, it means someone else has been made worse off, someone else has less than what he or she previously had. That is Pareto optimality. It assumes that in this world of limited resources, if some people gain, some people will lose. Okay? Scarcity is exactly that. All right? Scarcity arises because there are insufficient resources, all right, to satisfy society's needs and wants. Not everyone will get what they want. Because why? There are not enough resources to manufacture what everyone needs and wants. So only some will get, and that is what scarcity is. Moving on, I've made repeated references to resources. Now, what are they? Okay, they are what are needed to produce those goods and services which other people need and want. All right, resources, they are also known as factors of production. All right, they can include anything like minerals, from the sand on the beach to minerals to metals, and essentially anything that makes the production of a good or a service possible. All right, other examples of factors of production, also known as resources, they are also human labor. All right, the work people put into producing something. And another factor of production can be machinery, factories. Essentially, if it goes into producing something, it's a factor of production. Okay? This bottle was probably made by a machine. All right? That machine, all right, the plastic over here, and essentially everything else, the resin, everything that constitutes that bottle, all right, that was used to make that bottle, is a factor of production. All right, resources are nothing but the factor inputs needed to produce the goods and services demanded by people. Okay, thus we see that scarcity, all right, it is a phenomenon which arises because there aren't enough resources in the world. All right, as I've stated before, people are increasing, and everyone always will never be satisfied. Their needs and wants are unlimited. Even if there was one person on this planet, his or her needs and wants would be infinite. Okay? And as people are increasing and increasing number, we see that human needs and wants don't really have an end. This results in a situation where it is not possible to produce everything for everyone in society. Why? You guessed it. Because there aren't enough factors of production to produce everything people want. Okay? Now, where does this lead to? Fun fact, choice. Okay? Because there are unlimited demands and limited resources, we must make a choice as to what we want to produce and what we want to consume. Okay? Society must make a choice on as to what it wants. Society can't have everything, right? So society, people, everyone needs to make sure that they are choosing what is most important to them. And that choice is arising out of scarcity. Think about it. If there were unlimited resources, if we could get whatever we wanted, there would be no reason to make a choice. Okay? But choice exists because of scarcity. Okay? Now, we can look at an example of a foreign country over here, all right? My country, India, right? Now, if India one day, all right, decides, is faced with a decision whether it wants to buy more weapons or invest in medical equipment, it can't do both. Why? Because it does not have the requisite resources to do both. Scarcity. The government of India must make a choice because scarce resources, here it's money. The Indian government doesn't have enough money to buy more weapons and invest in medical equipment. So it must make a choice as to what it wants to buy, weapons or medical equipment. And that is essentially what scarcity leads to. It leads to us making a choice, right? Another concept which we need to discuss is efficiency, okay? Why does economics demand efficiency to be at the forefront? It's because limited resources. Economics also studies how to minimize wastage of resources. Why? Well, the less wastage is done, all right, the less resources are wasted, the more they can be put into production. Essentially, efficiency just leads to more people being able to fulfill their needs and wants, all right? Instead of throwing out some factors of production, all right, in a very inefficient manner, we use production, all right, in a way where the production of a good is efficient, where we minimize wastage so that we can make the most out of it, all right? Essentially, efficiency leads to more people getting what they want. Moving on. How does scarcity lead to choice over here? Okay. In a simple format, there are unlimited needs and wants. Okay. And then there are limited resources. The two combined give you scarcity. Okay. Scarcity then leads to the three basic economic questions, which are the basis of choice. Okay. You have limited resources and unlimited needs and wants. Not everyone can get what they want. All right. So people, all right, need to make a choice on as to what they want to buy, they want to have. They can't get everything, and that leads everyone to answer the three basic economic questions. What are they? All right. They are what to produce. Economies must decide what all they want to produce. They can't produce everything. Okay, it would be inefficient, and they simply don't have the resources to make everything. You can't, right? You'd have to own the entire world and universe to make everything, right? That's the first question, okay? Economies must also answer the second question of how they want to produce, okay? They must decide their method of production. They must decide exactly how they want to produce what they want to produce. Suppose an economy decides they want to produce, you guessed it, water bottles, okay? They want to decide next how they want to produce those water bottles, whether they want to use machinery or they want to use people to make the water bottle. Essentially, the how to produce question is related to their method of production. If an economy has a lot more labor, it has a lot more people, perhaps like an African country like Nigeria, where it's very populous, their production processes, all right, will be labor intensive, right? Another example of a labor intensive country will be India, because it has 1.3 billion people, right? They will use more human labor because it is abundant and it is everywhere. But, all right, A country like Japan, it doesn't have that many people, right? Its population is old. So, Japan is more likely to use machinery to produce their goods and services, right? So, economies must answer the what to produce question and how to produce what goods and services they are going to produce, right? In a manner which is efficient, all right? And finally, who are they going to produce those goods and services for? Economies must answer this third question because they must decide who gets the goods and services that are being produced in the economy, right? Not everyone can get what they want. So decisions about equality of output, how if everyone should get it or if only some people should get it, right? This question will also have to be answered by the economy because not everyone can get what they want, all right? And if everyone gets what they want, in what amount, all right? Are they going to get everything or a certain specific things like education, healthcare? So these are essentially the three basic economic questions which scarcity leads to, okay? What to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce for. So these are the three questions every economy must answer, all right? Now, the first two questions deal with resource allocation, but the third question deals with distribution of output and income. How is this different, all right? Resource allocation essentially involves allocating resources, putting resources, dedicating resources, all right, to certain production processes from a whole list of alternatives, okay? It is the process of assigning resources or factors of production to specific production processes and purposes among a multitude of other alternatives, okay? How is resource allocation done? On what parameters? They're done on the parameters of need, efficiency, and economic situation. If an economy, for example, in this pandemic, needs more vaccines for coronavirus, significantly more resources will be diverted to that, okay? So there we see that economies are answering the what to produce and how to produce question, okay? They're producing vaccines and they're producing vaccines using machines, okay? Thus, we see that resource allocation ties in with the first two questions. The third question, right, it ties in with the distribution of output in economy, okay? The distribution of output and income in an economy is essentially the basis for the third question, for whom to produce for. Who gets the output produced in an economy, okay? Essentially, we see that there is very strong relationship between a country's policy and economy's policy and how much of equality is there in terms of, resource equity. Does everyone get what they want or not? Now, we see over here that in terms of resource allocation, there are three very important concepts, okay? Reallocation, okay? Changing the amount of goods and services needed to be produced, right? So once coronavirus came in, all right, medical companies shifted from making tablets, right, to making vaccines. That was a reallocation of resources, okay? Changing how to produce a set amount of goods and changing the amount of goods needed to be produced. That's reallocation. Overallocation is when too many resources are dedicated to the production of a single good or service, right? An example would be in 1988, right? Saddam Hussein producing too many weapons relative to medical equipment after the first Gulf War. He's devoting too much on military spending and completely ignoring infrastructure development, right? That is an overallocation of resources. It is where too many resources have been assigned to the production of a certain good or service relative to the optimal amount, right? And the underallocation is the exact of overallocation. It is a situation where too few resources are being devoted to the production of a certain good or service, okay? So the same example can be taken, all right? Saddam Hussein producing too few medical equipment and medicine for the Iraqi people after the first Gulf War. There was an underallocation to education and healthcare, okay? That is essentially how resource allocation can play out. Any three of these events, all right? Reallocation, overallocation, or underallocation, right? And finally, we also see that within distribution of income and output, the core concept here is the redistribution of income. All right. If too many people are not getting what they have or what they want and need, and only a few are getting what they want and need, the resources are distributed. Right. The income is redistributed by the government. All right. The redistribution of income happens when groups or individuals who used to get a certain amount before now get more because of a certain intervention that took place. Right. And that's essentially it for this video. We covered some very important concepts about the economic questions. We looked at scarcity, and we looked at how choice is a product of scarcity. In the next class, we will be comparing and contrasting microeconomics with macroeconomics. Until then, good night, goodbye, and don't forget to stay safe. All right? See you later.